Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I didn't expect the door to open, certainly not at that exact moment, not when I was halfway through pulling my shirt over my head and the room was filled with nothing but the soft hum of the ceiling fan. But it did. The doorknob turned, the hinges creaked, and there he was, standing in the doorway like he'd forgotten how to breathe. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then I felt his eyes on me, slow, stunned, tracing the curve of my shoulder, the exposed line of my waist. My pulse kicked up instantly, loud in my ears, almost embarrassing in its honesty. He wasn't supposed to see me like this, yet something in the air shifted, thickened, softened. "Sorry, I thought you were," he started, but the words fell apart as our eyes locked. Something warm fluttered in my stomach. I could have panicked, rushed to cover myself, pretended nothing happened. But instead, something braver took over. Something reckless. Something that had been quietly building between us for weeks, hidden glances, lingering touches, that unspoken awareness every time he stood too close. So, slowly, deliberately, I slid my shorts off just a little bit slower. His breath hitched. I actually heard it. He didn't step back. He didn't close the door. He didn't even blink. He just stood there, frozen, mesmerized, like I'd stolen every thought from his head. And the strangest part? I wasn't scared. I wasn't embarrassed. I felt powerful. The tension between us tightened like a drawn bowstring. My skin heated under his stare, every inch aware of how near he was. I could feel the electricity pulsing in that tiny space between us, the silence so charged it was almost a touch in itself. He finally whispered, "You should tell me to leave." But he didn't move. And I didn't say a word. A slow smile tugged at the corner of my lips as I stepped just slightly, closer, enough for him to feel my presence in a way that said more than anything I could have spoken. His hand brushed the doorframe for balance. Mine hovered over my hip, steady, intentional. And then, a sudden knock on the wall behind him made us both jump, snapping the moment clean in half. Someone was coming. And neither of us was ready for what would happen next. I closed the drawer slowly, trying to steady my breathing after what just happened. He had walked away when he heard the knock, but the moment lingered, heavy, heated, impossible to ignore. I could still feel the way his eyes held me, like he was seeing a truth we had both been pretending didn't exist. What no one knew, not even him, was how long I had been drawn to him in quiet, secret ways. The way he always checked on me, the way he'd gently tease me when I was stressed, the way he'd say my name like it had extra weight. But behind those soft gestures was a distance too. He never pushed. He never crossed a line. And I told myself that was good, safer. Because relationships, real ones, are messy. And ours was already complicated long before that door opened. He wasn't just someone who lived down the hall. He wasn't just a friend. We had a history woven from misunderstandings, almost confessions, and nights when we'd talk until dawn, only to pretend the next day that everything was normal. There were cracks between us, thin but deep. Moments when I'd catch him staring at me like he wanted to say something, then he'd look away, guarded. Times when I wished he'd stay just a little longer in the room, but he would leave, as if afraid of wanting too much. We danced around each other, orbiting close and then far, never daring to admit how magnetic it felt. But today something changed. As I stepped into the hallway, I found him leaning against the wall, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked up when he heard me, and something in his eyes softened, vulnerable, unsure. "You okay?" he asked. "Are you?" I countered, trying not to let my voice shake. His lips pulled into a crooked smile. "I didn't mean to walk in on you." "I know." Silence stretched between us again, not uncomfortable, but charged, the way it always was when we got too close to the truth. His shoulder brushed mine accidentally. Or maybe not accidentally at all. The contact was fleeting, but it sent a warm ripple through my chest. There it was again, that pull. He looked at me like he was about to say something real this time, one of those unspoken desires finally breaking through the walls he kept up. "I've been trying to give you space," he murmured. "Why?" I asked quietly. He held my gaze for a moment too long. "Because whenever I don't, I feel things I'm not sure I should feel." My breath caught. The world seemed to slow. Before I could respond, someone called his name from the living room, pulling him away again. He stepped back, hesitating, as if torn between leaving and staying. This time, he didn't leave quickly. He kept his eyes on me. And in them, I saw everything he hadn't dared to say. The rest of the evening felt strange, like every sound was louder, every glance sharper, every breath heavier. We stayed in the same apartment, but it felt like we were orbiting each other, pulled by something neither of us wanted to name. Later, when I stepped into the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water, I found him there. Leaning on the counter. Waiting, maybe. Or maybe avoiding me. It was always hard to tell with him. He glanced up, and in that split second, something flickered behind his eyes, something that wasn't there before the door incident. "You didn't come to dinner," he said quietly. "I wasn't hungry," I replied. He nodded, but his jaw tightened in a way that told me he didn't believe a word of it. Or maybe he was disappointed. Before either of us could say anything else, she walked in. His friend. The one who always found a reason to touch his arm, laugh a little too close, linger a little too long. And tonight, she seemed bolder, maybe sensing the shift in the air. She brushed past him, intentionally letting her fingers trail along his sleeve. He didn't react, but when her eyes met mine, there was something smug there. Like she knew something she shouldn't. My stomach tightened, jealousy, sharp and unexpected. She giggled. "You two seem tense." He shot her a warning look, but she only stepped closer to him. "Did I interrupt something?" My grip tightened on the glass. His eyes flicked to me, quick, searching, almost pleading. He felt it too. He didn't want her touching him. He wanted me to see that. "Nothing happened," I said calmly, though my heartbeat betrayed me. She smirked. Looks like something almost did." He stepped away from her then, a small movement, but loud and meaning. His arm brushed mine as he passed, deliberately close. The warmth of that small touch sent a shiver across my skin. He leaned in, voice low enough for only me to hear. "She doesn't matter." The words hit me harder than I expected. Dangerous. Honest. Too close to a truth we weren't supposed to say out loud. Before I could reply, she called his name again, trying to pull him back toward her. But he didn't look at her. He looked at me, long, intense, like he was trying to tell me everything he wasn't allowed to say in front of her. That look alone felt like crossing a line. Something forbidden was forming between us, and it was getting harder to pretend we didn't feel it. That night, the air felt different, heavy, waiting, like something unspoken was pressing against both of us. After the kitchen tension, the apartment slowly emptied as everyone left one by one. Except him. Except me. And neither of us said a word about staying. I tried to distract myself by cleaning up the living room, pretending the silence wasn't vibrating with everything we hadn't said. He eventually stepped in, taking the glass from my hand. "I'll do it," he murmured. "You don't have to." "I want to." The way he said it, too soft, too full of meaning. I stepped back, trying to steady the pounding in my chest. He washed the glass slowly, almost thoughtfully, as if buying time. As if working up the courage for something. When he dried his hands and looked at me, the distance between us felt impossibly small. "About earlier," he began. "Don't," I whispered, not because I didn't want to talk, but because talking meant admitting. And admitting meant no going back. He took a slow step forward anyway. "I can't keep pretending." My breath hitched. Another step. He was close enough now that I could feel his warmth. This isn't nothing, he said quietly. Whatever's happening between us, it's not just in my head. His hand brushed my arm, barely a touch, but my entire body reacted like he'd whispered a secret against my skin. I didn't pull away this time. I didn't want to. A long silence wrapped around us, almost intimate. Then the power flickered. We both froze as the room darkened, the lights dimming until only the soft glow from the hallway remained. A storm outside began tapping against the windows. The world suddenly felt small, like it was just us, locked in a moment we couldn't escape. He exhaled shakily. "Come with me," he whispered. "Where?" "Someplace we can talk, without interruptions." His voice was low, rough with emotion and something deeper. I followed him down the hall, my heart racing louder than the thunder outside. Every step tightened the tension between us, pulling us into something we weren't sure we should cross, but couldn't stop moving toward. We reached the door of the guest room, quiet, dim, empty. He closed it behind us softly. Too softly. Then he turned toward me, slowly, deliberately, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. As if whatever he was about to confess could change everything. But before he could speak, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Someone was calling his name. And the moment shattered. The knock echoed through the apartment like a warning, sharp enough to slice straight through the tension between us. He stiffened, his eyes flicking instinctively to the door behind me, then back to my face. The storm outside growled again, as if echoing the chaos building inside both of us. "Don't move," he whispered. But I already had. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself, drawn by something stronger than fear, stronger than uncertainty. He looked torn, like he wanted to pull me in and push me away at the same time. Another knock. Louder. This time, a voice followed. "Open the door. We need to talk." I recognized the voice instantly. Her. His friend, the one who had touched him too comfortably, too often. The one who always hovered a little too close. But the tone she used now wasn't smug. It was shaking. He looked at me with panic in his eyes, but not the kind that came from being caught in something wrong, more like he was afraid of losing control of something he'd been trying to protect. He stepped toward the door, but I reached out and grabbed his hand. Not to stop him, but to ask silently, "What's happening?" He squeezed my fingers in return, a silent promise, "I'll explain." He opened the door a crack, just enough to slip out. I followed him, unable to stay behind, unable to pretend nothing was unfolding. She stood in the hallway, eyes red, fists clenched. When she saw me, her expression twisted, not with jealousy, but with something deeper. Betrayal. Hurt. "You didn't tell her," she snapped at him. My stomach dropped. "Tell me what?" He closed his eyes for a moment, collecting himself. Then he exhaled, steady but pained. "We weren't together," he said to her firmly. "You know that." "That isn't the point," she fired back. "You told me you were moving away. Leaving. Tomorrow. And you didn't tell her. You didn't tell anyone." The hallway suddenly felt colder, narrower. Moving away. Tomorrow. I stared at him, feeling the world tilt. You're leaving?" He turned to me quickly, shaking his head. "It's complicated. I didn't want to." "You didn't want to hurt her," she said bitterly, cutting him off. "Or maybe you didn't want to hurt yourself." His jaw clenched. "That's enough." But it wasn't. Not for me. My voice trembled, not with anger, but with something rawer. "Were you ever going to tell me?" He stepped closer, eyes full of emotion I'd never seen from him before, stripped, vulnerable. "I tried," he whispered. "Every time I got close, something stopped me." "What?" I asked, barely breathing. "You," he said softly. "You made me want to stay." The world went quiet. Even she froze at those words. He took my hands, his forehead almost touching mine, voice shaking. I didn't walk in on you by accident tonight. I came to talk. I came to tell you I didn't want to leave without knowing if you felt the same way I do. Before I could answer, before either of us could say the words that would change everything, the electricity cut out completely. The apartment fell into darkness. And in that darkness, I heard her whisper. It's too late. The darkness swallowed the hallway, leaving only the muted rumble of thunder to fill the silence. For a moment, none of us moved. It felt like the world had paused, holding its breath, waiting to see who would speak first. He let go of my hands slowly, as if afraid I might disappear with the light. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said softly, voice trembling in the dark. I swallowed hard. You were leaving tomorrow. And you weren't going to tell me. That's not true, he started. It feels true, I whispered. A shaky breath escaped him. I know. And I deserve that. But I didn't tell you because I didn't know how. Every time I tried, I looked at you and felt, he stopped, the words catching. Felt too much. She finally stepped forward, her silhouette barely visible. You think feelings make this better? Her voice cracked, revealing hurt she had tried to hide all night. You should have been honest with both of us. Instead, you let us stand here in the dark, not knowing where we stand. The storm outside intensified, rattling the windows. He dragged a hand through his hair, guilt weighing on him like a physical burden. I'm sorry, he said, turning toward her. I never meant to lead you on. She scoffed but wiped her cheek. I wasn't asking you to love me. I was asking you to treat me like someone who mattered. The words landed hard. Even I felt them. He nodded slowly. You do matter. But not in the way you want. And I should have said that sooner. Her shoulders softened, the fight draining from her. For a moment, she just looked tired, tired of chasing something that was never hers. She took a deep breath. Then let me say this and be done. She glanced between us. If you're staying or going, at least make a choice for the right reasons. Not because you're afraid. And not because you think you owe anyone anything. With that, she stepped back, her voice calm but sincere. You two need to talk. She walked away, leaving us alone in the dim hallway. He exhaled shakily and turned toward me again. The faint glow from outside lit his face just enough for me to see the worry in his eyes. I messed this up, he whispered. But if you want me to stay, I will. Even if it means disappointing people. Even if it means changing everything. My heart clenched. You can't choose based on me. I'm choosing because of what I feel, he said, stepping closer. For the first time. I want something so badly it scares me. My breath caught as the storm softened, a strange calm settling in its place. What if it's too late? I asked, echoing the words she'd whispered earlier. He shook his head gently. Not if you still feel it too. His hand brushed mine in the dark, warm, steady, brave. This time, I didn't pull away. The conflict wasn't over. But for the first time, the path forward felt real. The storm finally calmed overnight, leaving the world washed clean and quiet. By morning, soft light filtered through the windows, gentle and warm, the kind of light that made everything feel new, possible, hopeful. I found him sitting on the balcony, elbows resting on his knees, staring out at the wet skyline. He looked exhausted, but lighter somehow, as if the weight he'd been carrying for months had finally been put down. He heard me step out and turned. His eyes softened instantly, the way they always did when it was just us. Couldn't sleep? I asked. Not really, he admitted with a small smile. Too much on my mind. I sat beside him, close enough for our shoulders to touch. This time, neither of us pretended the closeness was accidental. What happens now? I asked gently. He let out a long breath. I canceled the move. My heart stopped for a moment. What? He looked at me with a softness I'd never seen him let fully surface. I realized I wasn't leaving because I wanted to. I was leaving because I was scared of what staying could mean. Scared of wanting something I wasn't sure I could have. His fingers brushed mine, slow, deliberate, warm. But last night, he continued, when everything fell apart. I realized what I wanted most was right here. I swallowed hard, emotion rising in my chest. You didn't have to choose me. I didn't. He smiled faintly. I chose us. The words settled between us like a promise. Slowly, I turned my hand over so our fingers could intertwine. The gesture felt simple, but the meaning behind it was everything: acceptance, forgiveness, a beginning. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the silence between us wasn't heavy or tense. It was peaceful. Full. Honest. He leaned back in his chair, tilting his head toward mine. You know, he said softly, that moment you slid your shorts off slower. I thought I imagined the way you looked at me. I laughed, cheeks warming. You didn't imagine it. And the way you held my hand last night, he asked. You didn't imagine that either. He exhaled, relieved, and let his head rest lightly against mine. We stayed like that for a long time, letting the morning breeze brush past us, letting the quiet confirm what neither of us needed to say out loud anymore. Finally, he whispered, "Can we start over? But this time, without pretending?" I squeezed his hand gently. I don't want to pretend anymore. He turned, lifting my chin with a tenderness that made my chest tighten. Our foreheads touched, soft, slow, perfect, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to pause just for us. No storms. No secrets. Just two people finally choosing each other. When he finally wrapped his arms around me, it felt like the ending, and the beginning, we both deserved. A romantic closure not made of grand gestures, but of truth, healing, and a love we were finally brave enough to admit.